And a 63-year-old woman is set to become Britain's oldest new mother. Dr. Patricia Rashbrook says she has carefully considered the best interests of the child.
Britain's oldest mother-to-be seemed bemused by the attention, having woken up to find herself on the front page of a newspaper.
Well, we just want you to know that we take our responsibilities very seriously and regard the best interests of the child as paramount. And what we would wish now is to be allowed the right to pursue our family life in private. So that's really all we need to say at the moment.
What about your age, though, Doctor?
No further comment.
Dr. Rashbrook refused to answer further questions, although she did accept that her situation was unusual and potentially controversial. The child psychiatrist already has 2 children from a previous marriage, aged 26 and 22, but wanted a baby with her new husband. The couple couldn't get fertility treatment here in the UK. There's no legal age limit, but guidelines from the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority say treating consultants should use their discretion, bearing in mind the welfare of the child and the ability of the parents to look after it. Most IVF clinics say they won't treat women aged over 50.
At the age of 63, the chances of her having a normal delivery are next to zero. She's probably going to have a complicated pregnancy, high blood pressure, heart problems, kidney problems, and there's a high risk of having a stroke or a heart attack because of the stress of carrying the pregnancy.
Dr. Rashbrook and her husband had to travel to Europe for treatment, paying an estimated £50,000 to this man, Professor Severino Antinori. He's a controversial figure, criticised for wanting to clone a human baby. He's treated several other women over 60 with IVF, believing they make better parents. He described Dr. Rashbrook as perfect because she's very slim, blonde and in perfect condition. However, he couldn't treat her in his native Italy because the procedure, which involved taking another woman's egg, fertilising it with her husband's sperm and implanting it into Dr. Rashbrook's womb, is illegal there. We understand they had to travel to a country in the former Soviet Republic. Until now, Britain's oldest mother has been Liz Buttle, a 60-year-old farmer who gave birth in 1997. The world's oldest mother is Adriana Ilescu from Romania. She was 66 when she gave birth after 9 years of fertility treatment. 2 of her triplets died and the surviving child was born premature. Critics accuse these older mums of being selfish.
It's one of the big perplexities about IVF. It's solved many problems, but it's created many more. It's given women and men the capacity to make children right outside the natural boundaries of nature, and that is very worrying, I think.
The average age of mothers giving birth to their first child has risen steadily over the past 30 years. In 1971, first-time mums were on average 23 years old. 10 years later, it was nearly 25. And today, figures show the average age mums first give birth to is over 27. Perhaps most significantly, though, the number of babies born to mothers aged 45 and over has shot up. In 1994, it was 488. In 2004, it was 909. Whilst all the attention has been on mums, critics also question the role of dads. John Farrant will be over 75 by the time his child is 16. Dr. Rashbrook will be almost 80. But the couple say they're fully prepared, happy and a little scared.
Darshana Soni reporting us. Now joining us live from Birmingham is the head of the London Gynaecological and Fertility Centre, Professor Ian Craft from Westminster. We're joined by Dr. Miriam Stoppard, who has authored a book on pregnancy and childcare. Professor Craft, I mean, in fact, Liz Buttle, I think, was one of your clinic's mothers. It's been possible, obviously, to produce older mothers post-menopausal, but there must be a limit that you draw, even at your clinic, right?
Absolutely, we always have drawn, and in fact, Mrs. Buttle told us she was 49 when she had her treatment, and she was seen by a counsellor, by another consultant, not by me, and her treatment was approved by a review committee. So she had a baby at an older age than we had even expected. But that we have an age limit, of course, that's 55, because that's the oldest age at which someone has a child naturally in this country. I think the people who are very antagonistic about this, and I'm not supporting women of 63 having children, I would like to disassociate myself with that because it's much, much more risky. They should have to realise that if you feel it's wrong, should you have a finite age limit, and if so, how are you going to control it? Is it by an identity card, a birth certificate? And if you say you choose 50, what happens when someone conceives at the age of 53 spontaneously after being trying for 20 years? It does happen.
Right.
So I think it does raise a series of complexities.
Dr. Miriam Stoppard, the fact is that our population is living quality life much later, much older. Surely, in fact, an older woman is in a perfectly good condition to mother a child quite late into life.
Oh, I don't believe that, and I certainly don't believe it as old as 60 plus. I think wanting a child in that age group is the ultimate expression of our consumer society. I want it, so I must have it. But I think where babies are concerned, that really isn't right. I think actually seeking out assisted conception when you're over 60 really is an act of selfishness and self-indulgence, because one isn't thinking about the fallout for the baby that you're going to have.
But is there any evidence that grannies and grandpas that bring up children, and it happens very regularly in our society, do the child any less good than the natural mother and father?
Oh, I don't think that that's the question at all. A 60-plus mother has to carry the infant. Her body isn't physiologically capable of the burden of a pregnancy, and that puts the child at risk for a start. The risk of stillbirth, for instance, is double in a woman of that age. But the other thing is that there's all the early child care, the sleepless nights, the breastfeeding, and all the chores that have to be done, which are exhausting for a woman half that age.
Let me put those points to Ian Kraft, because that is obviously a question, is whether a woman is biologically fit enough to cope in her late 50s or early 60s.
Well, some obviously are, because they've done it successfully, but I'm not sure it's something we want to commend. And I think what you have to realise, it is a much more risky event. There's a direct association with illness to the mother and to the baby over the age of 40. You must remember, a vast number of women over 40 who find themselves pregnant ask for abortions. But, of course, there's an increased risk of toxemia of pregnancy, specifically with egg donation. So it's not something to go into lightly. You have to think about it very, very carefully.
The one thing that we have heard from the Italian doctor is that the mother happens to be very fit and in a very good condition.
Well, she may be very fit in a very good condition this instance, but if you take breech deliveries, they're infinitely worse off than vaginal deliveries. So you have to think about that. Having a baby from egg donation has more risk than having a baby with your own eggs. Having a baby at 50, even naturally, is more risky than having it at 30. So all these things have to be taken into account. So she may be all right, but take 100 and you'll find they're infinitely worse off.
She's got a good chance, Miriam Stoppard, of living a quality life right up to sort of 85, when the child would be 22 or 3. That's okay, isn't it?
No, it's not. When the child is 12, she'll be 75, and she can't be as active with as much stamina, nor can her husband, as a child deserves from her parents. The other thing that bothers me is that if she does become infirm, and no one can say that she won't, or get an illness, or the father also, the child, maybe only a teenager, will have to act as nurse to her parents. And the last thing that really bothers me is that a child has a great deal of difficulty coping with the fear of death of their parents. Now, when most children ask this question, you can say, oh yes, but it's so unlikely to happen, we don't have to think about it. With this child, she will have to think about and be traumatized by the thought that her parents may die.
Miriam Stoppard and Ian Kraft, thank you both very much indeed.